Hey there, channel. How's it going? I've got hair in my face. I was watching a film the other night called The People versus George Lucas, and if you haven't seen it and you're like a fan of Star Wars, you should definitely see it because it's really good. It's a good kind of interplay between George Lucas as like a visionary director of Star Wars and like the fans who hate him. But while I was watching it, I got this horrible realization that when I first saw the Phantom Menace, I was, oh God, a teenager. I was definitely a teenager. I'm not sure how old exactly when that came out. There was a teen. There was like, a something teen, like a number, and then the word teen after it. But I was listening to a lot of the interviews where they talk about how like they hated the movie. Like, oh, we saw it and it was shitty. We saw it on the first night and it was the worst thing. I didn't see it on the first night. I saw it in the first, I think, month that it was out, like the second or third week that it was out. Because I remember that the theater was still full, but it was mostly kids and then me. And there was this like horrific realization. I'm very I'm kind of like to admit this because it just throws all of my cred as a critic out the window. But I liked the Phantom Menace. But that's not. I don't think that's a cardinal sin. There are people who like the Phantom Menace. I like Darth Maul. I like the droids. But here's the bad thing. When I first saw the the Phantom Menace the first time, and maybe even the second time, I liked Jar Jar Binks. I know! I thought he was fucking funny. I liked him, and I would like defend him at school. Like, no, you don't understand Jar Jar. He's great. He's a great character, and etc. He's not. He's not a great character. He's a terrible character. He's like a racist, horrible, like goofy thing with the weird, like the ears and shit. He looks shitty and he sounds shitty and I hate him. I hate him. He sucks. But that was the it was weird to like I kept watching the Phantom Menace and then over time I got more and more disillusioned with him. Like I saw him the second time, I was like, oh yeah, no, it's still Jar Jar. Jar Jar is cool. Saw it the third time, I was a little bit older, and I was like, he seems very racist. Maybe that's just me, but he seems exceptionally racism. And then the fourth and fifth time, I was a lot old. And then after because you don't see Star Wars like once, you see it like a million times. So uh, seeing it later on was just like it was bad. It was not good. It wasn't a good feeling to like keep watching it and being like, man, he just keeps getting more racist. He just keeps getting like a more racist, shitty character every time that I fucking see him. He's horrible. He's he's horrible. We're gonna die. Fucking why? Why would you have that thing? It's a racist caricature that's also like an underwater goofy dog. Anyways, I don't like Jar Jar now. What it got me thinking about other properties and how that kind of feeds into the fandoms and specifically Pokemon. I wanted to talk about that. But first, I want to go into like the what was it, the episode 2 and 3. I didn't even see episode 2 until like after I saw episode 3. And I didn't like episode 3. Episode 3 was like bad, and it had those moments where like Anakin would climb through Padme's window, like an episode of Dawson's fucking Creek. Oh, Dawson, you're so great. Oh, yeah, girl from Dawson's Creek, you're great too. I don't know what her name was. It was Katie Holmes, right? That was her. It was fucking Katie Holmes. Holy shit. Ah, how the time flies. And then I saw, oh god, the first thing that I ever saw of episode 2 was that scene where C3PO's on like the weird like conveyor belt Geonosia, right? Is that how you say the planet? I don't fucking know. And he looks like mud. Like the CG is so bad. And I remember seeing that and being like, why would I ever fucking watch this movie? Why would I ever? And to this day, I still haven't seen all of episode 2. And I don't fucking want to. I don't want to, because it went from C-3PO mud directly to like a big arena fight with a fuck ton of Jedi and like some monsters running around. Like, that's dumb. It's dumb. Anyway, back to Pokemon. Pokemon, hey! Yeah, and so now what I'm seeing a lot is that, first of all, there's like this wave of people who are like, we're 90's kids, we're 90's kids, la. And I'm a 90's kid, and I was born in '88. I don't say I'm an 80's kid. And the reason that I don't say I'm an 80's kid is because I wasn't fucking cogent for the 80's. I didn't go to hair metal shows. I don't care who Poison was. Well, I don't care. I don't care who Poison was. I don't give a shit. Um, I was around for like when leg warmers in 80's fashion like came back in the mid to late 90's. Like that was like a thing that happened, that I remember. And I remember when it came back in the mid 2000s again. Like leg warmers came back fucking again, and they're back now too. Leg warmers are never gonna fucking die. They're like the they're like the they're like the AIDS of the 80s. Well, I think AIDS was the AIDS of the 80's. But leg warmers are like they're like the figurative AIDS of the 80's, and it clips to your leg and not your immune system, and it doesn't kill you. Well, I guess it could kill you if like you set it on fire. How flammable are leg warmers? That somebody should do a study. Leg warmers, can they kill you if you set them on fire? Probably. Oh, fuck, fire hurts. But I think along with the people now who were born in like the late 90's, I think the 96 to like to 2000, they're like, oh, we're 90's kids, and you're not. You're from the. I'm so sorry that you're not from the. I'm so sorry you're not from the great decade that was the 90's. The 90's were like the 50's. It was just like a decade of excess. It was just rampant fucking consumerism and baby boomers sucking up fucking everything that they could, and the kids of that generation were spoiled as shit, and I'm sorry that you want to be a part of that because there were some cool things that came out, but like, fuck, it wasn't that great. It really wasn't that great. Have you heard our music? It was mostly mutual masturbation. Ah! And yeah, you want to be like, oh well, I was around for like the first generation of Pokemon, or like Crossfire commercial. But I think one of the things that is important for when you see like these 90's kids kind of come into it, and they're like, oh, the first 150 were the best. The first 150 are what it's all about. And it's not just like so-called 90's kids. It's people who were like me, people who were my age, who were around when the first gen came out, and they're like, fuck the new ones. It's all about the old ones. It's, and I have to wonder, because I've been playing Pokemon forever, and I think, it was like, I think generally speaking, the first two generations are accepted way more because we were kids for that. So we were like, oh, it's the first 150, and then when the second 100 came out for Gen 2, for Silver and Gold, we were like, fuck! Oh! Because the first movie had Donphan and fucking Meryl in it, and those were like the two new ones, and we were like, fuck! Like, it was like a window into the fucking future. You would see it, and even in that shitty Pikachu short fucking thing, it was like, oh, there was an elephant and it rolled into a ball, and then it died. But it was still cool for like a minute, and then Meryl was in that fucking short where there wasn't even human language. I feel really bad for my grandparents who took me to see that movie, and they had to like listen through like the Pikachu's Vacation, where there was like maybe 2 lines of human dialogue, and then a fucking what was it, like a Vitamin C, like 2 Vitamin C songs, Vacation, and that other one that was awful, Try to Catch Me. And like, again, 90's kids, like, you, Vitamin C, fuck that shit. What? Why? Ugh. But now there's a lot of kind of armchair like antiquarians who kind of sit around like, oh yeah, no, the first two gens were great, and the real reasoning, I think, is because, and you have to look at this objectively. Like when the first two generations ended and it came into the third generation, there was no way to bring Pokemon into the third generation. You couldn't do it because there was a huge coding change in the Pokemon games. So there was a lot of bitterness, and actually, I got out of Pokemon for a long time, for years, like 5 years, because I just didn't want to play the new games, like Ruby and Sapphire. I'm sorry, Ruby. By the time I got into it, Emerald had been out for a while, and I was like, oh well, I'll play Ruby, because fuck it. It was just like it was kind of a slap in the face to spend 400, 500, 600 hours on Pokemon and then not be able to take your Pokemon into the new game, and you had to play with the new ones. And the new ones they could have been fine. Like honestly, if they had let us transfer them over into the new games, I really wouldn't have cared about the new Pokemon. It probably would have continued on and been like, oh, Gen 3, great. But there was like an associated bitterness about that, to just say like, oh well, now I can't take these. I have to play with these fuckers. The eel with the fucking dumb eye. Like, what is what? That what is his name? Huntail, and he's got that one, that fucking eye. They started showing up, with the dot in the middle. I almost poked myself in the eye. That would have been bad. But it's like, and I think it has a lot to do with nostalgia. You just sort of see it in the way that you saw it when you were a kid. Um, and now there's a lot of hatred for the new Pokemon. Fucking whatever they Gen 5 and 6 and 7 and 30. There's like 600 or 700 of these fuckers now. I don't even care anymore. Actually, I do. I do care a lot because you watch the trivia, so you fucking know. Um, but it's like just I don't know. It always feels weird to me when I see people who are like, this generation was the best one. Really? Because in Gen 1 they had Oddish. And I just, you know, he's fucking, he's a turnip. Or a radish. And with feet. Come on, guys, perspective here.